IVM.
Hi everybody, this is Amit Doshi, and I have a request. We'd really appreciate it if you could go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and fill out our survey over there. It's going to take a few minutes to do, but it gives us some really interesting information that we can take to advertisers and brands about who's listening to the network. If you're comfortable giving us your email address, while you're filling out the survey, we'll enter you into a random drawing where we'll be sending out a bunch of IVM swag to some of our listeners. Last year we sent out coffee mugs, and this year we're hoping to send out much cooler stuff. That's ivmpodcast.com/survey. We really appreciate your help.
Hello everyone and welcome to Simblified, yet another episode where we make you wiser. Actually, we make you look wiser without actually making it wiser. We can also make you wiser, but no, I don't know where I'm going with that. But anyway, welcome to Simblified, and this is me, Naren, with the ever smiling, despite the quality of my terrible jokes, co-host Tony. Say hi, Tony.
Yeah. No, Naren, hi everyone. If I'm smiling at this time, it is because your jokes are really good. I think we should tell our listeners, ever since we've been trying to find a rhythm for Simplified during the lockdown, Naren and I finally decided it's best to do it early in the morning. Where we are at our crankiest and the rest of the household hasn't gotten to us and try to record it before they wake up. So we're actually recording at 8 a.m. on 29th November.
And well, it's been it's novel because you sort of you're reasonably fresh in the day, and your mind is not yet polluted with impure thoughts. And actually, you are doing all the polluting, right? So you're trying best to sort of pollute your co-host's mind with impure thoughts. So it's kind of nice.
And your teeth are not yet brushed. Okay, just mine. So fresh off the cup of coffee, Naren, what are you telling us today about?
I'm going to talk about something that I've dabbled in for a change. I know a fair bit of from direct experience, right? So most of the time when we do simplified episodes, it's basically we read up on stuff and we do it. But here, I can tell you that I am a battlefield hero.
So it's not about writing a book then. Hashtag Naren write a book.
Well, yeah, not about writing a book. So there is this joke about, before I go into the topic, I have to tell you, there is this joke about this guy who is invited to lecture, a college on something, and he's embarrassed. His wife asks him, "What are you going to lecture on?" So he's embarrassed to tell the real topic. So he says it's about flying in airplanes, and so the topic really is sex. So he's been asked to give a talk on sex, and so after some days, someone meets his wife on the road and says, your husband's talk was very nice, and he was really, he elaborated a good deal about, and he told us a lot of things that people didn't know, and so on. So she expressed incredulity. He says, how can he? He's been there. He's done it only twice. The first time he threw up, and the second time his hat flew off.
Oh, God. I must tell you that the only new listener I've added to Simplified after I've come in is my dad. So I think we've lost him also at this point. But like I was saying, right, in the last episode, I'm back home and it's nice. I think one of the joys of being in your 30s is actually like having conversations as a peer with your dad and sharing a drink and stuff like that. So we'll have to not talk about Simplified for a while, but thanks for that.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about a technique of cooking called sous vide. So I don't know if I don't know how many of you dear listeners have heard of sous vide. It's fairly niche, though it's become popular these days. And I'll go into the technique straight away. I'll tell you what it is. It is also known as low temperature, long time cooking. What you do is you take the food you want to cook. It's usually meat.
Low temperature, long time cooking, is it?
Yeah.
Is this like when you like break open an egg on the bonnet of your car in India?
Yeah, you can actually do that in Kerala. I think you can.
Yeah,
right? Most of the year you can.
I have actually broken an egg right before we started recording, so it's done by the time we're off.
So sous vide is that you put the meat. It works for vegetables as well, but the food you want to cook, you put it in a plastic bag. You take the air out. So sous vide means under vacuum in French.
Oh,
you take the air off, and so the plastic bag that you've put the food in, it's clinging to the bag very closely, right? And then you put it in a water bath, which is typically between 55 and 65 degrees Celsius.
Oh, okay.
And you keep it in that bath for a few hours, and it actually cooks the meat through.
Okay,
that's what happens. And so I've got a couple of things. First, your water bath needs to be maintained at a very constant temperature for this to work. So it can't be like 100 degrees for like 10 minutes and like 40 degrees for the other 40 minutes. It doesn't work like that. It has to be at, typically, if you're cooking chicken, it would be something like 63 degrees. And it would be 63 plus or minus, I think, 1 degree. And your food will be at that temperature for typically 1 to 2 hours.
Okay. So you need special equipment for this?
Yeah, you just need. So in the old days, you would have what are known as PID controllers, and so the heater with a sensor, and it keeps measuring the temperature. And if the set temperature is different from the temperature that is sensed, then it keeps heating. And when it
what is the device?
It's called a PID controller. So.
Okay.
I mean, in the old days, that was what was used. And then they sort of packaged it all into what they call sous vide cookers, sous vide immersion cooker. So it's basically like an immersion rod. You must have used it when you were in engineering college. Right? Hot water bath, you stick it into a bucket of water, and then, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know we were doing sous vide baths back then, but okay, cool.
The only difference here is it has to be at that temperature. So if you wanted to cook chicken, you would cook it at 63 degrees for 2 hours. And the immersion heater that you have would heat the water to 63, and it would also keep sensing the temperature. So the moment it reaches 63, it stops heating.
Yeah.
And the moment it goes down to 62, it starts heating again. So it's always between 62 and 63.
Okay. You really have to cook chicken for 2 hours. At the end of it, it'll still taste.
Yeah, so that's the whole the interesting bit on why sous vide works. So I'll just go into how it works. So cooking is all about transforming proteins and starches in whatever you're cooking, and we can't eat too many things uncooked. We do need those proteins to be transformed, and cooking does that. So it's in most other, like a tiger or some other animal which is eating meat would not cook. They would do all the breaking down inside their digestive system. But humans evolved after we apparently discovered fire more than 1 million years ago.
Right.
And since that discovered how to harness fire. So to get to we all originated as hunter gatherers, including the Sanskari And they were all, they had to basically, do some, they had to do something with the meat. You couldn't eat the meat. And the problem is that when you roast meat on a fire or do something like that, the flesh of the animal, any flesh, is not a very good conductor. So you need to raise the temperature outside to a very great extent before the inside gets cooked. So you usually get meat which is charred on the outside and kind of perfect on the inside.
Right.
And it's difficult to get that thing. You have to be so that's the taste here. So if you had a really good roasted piece of meat, it would be very, very nice and charred and very different, hard on the outside. But moment you take a bite, it's soft and succulent inside, and all of it is cooked, so it is very palatable. And it's difficult, so you have to be a really good cook, and you really need to know how how the whole process works, and you have to acquire mastery over it. So sous vide takes the guesswork out. So what sous vide does is it keeps the meat at the temperature it's supposed to be in the interior, and it keeps it for long enough time that the whole piece of meat eventually gets to that temperature. So all the proteins that you wanted to transform have transformed.
Okay.
By the only thing that you don't have is the crisping and the browning outside. It's also called a Maillard reaction. Okay. It's a process where some caramelization of the sugars and the proteins and everything happens. It's a complex reaction, and it gives us a lot of flavor. So humans are sort of evolutionarily sort of conditioned to find flavor in the browning of the meat. So if you find, so that Maillard reaction, so what sous vide cooks do is they cook the meat entirely and they just brown it on a pan. They just
separately
make a pan very hot, just sort of char it on the outside or brown it on the outside, sear it, they call it, and they serve it. Now, because the meat has already been cooked through, it doesn't matter that your searing is not perfect.
It's just for effect.
Yeah, just for effect, and just for the flavor. You got the flavor and sort of cooked, cooking too. It takes the guesswork out of.
So it's more science than art.
Yeah, it's more science than art. And it's surprisingly recent. So there was this interesting character called Count Rumsford, who figured this out way back in the late 1700s.
Okay.
And what Rumsford did was he tried cooking potatoes with in air. So, and he found that even if you heated it to a lower temperature than previously thought necessary, the potatoes turned out fairly well cooked and edible, and they preserved flavors. And after that, it was forgotten till many years later. Michelin Star chef decided that he had to figure out some easier way to make the perfect cut of meat, and that guy's name was George Pralis, and he was a chef in a very iconic Michelin Star restaurant called Restaurant Trois Gros, or however you pronounce it, in France. And he found that there's something called foie gras.
Yeah, goose liver.
Yeah,
right?
Goose liver. Yeah. So when goose liver is cooked in this manner, it keeps its original appearance. It doesn't lose excess amounts of fat and texture. And he, being a Michelin Star chef, expected to be perfect, and he sort of he developed this to take, I think, get his underlings to do the cooking and take the day off. I think that's how he started it.
Right.
And he worked with another guy named Bruno Gusseau, and Bruno Gusseau was a food scientist, who was working with a company called Cuisine Solutions. And these guys, they thought of this technique, and then they did a lot of research on different kinds of meats and different kinds of vegetables. And then they came up with a lot of recipes, like what temperature you should keep. For example, I think beef is generally cooked at 52 degrees. It's for a certain amount of your doneness is a function of that temperature, and it's so fine. I don't know the temperatures exactly because I haven't cooked beef, but 52 is I think rare. 53 will be medium and 54 will be well done. It'll be that close. It's something like that. Or just
this kind of cooking is anyway rare.
Okay, yeah, anyway it is rare.
Just one quick diversion, if I may. On Michelin Stars, do you know how they came about and what they stand for?
Oh yeah, I've read about this. So Michelin was the tire manufacturer.
Yeah.
And they wanted to compile a book of restaurants where they wanted people to drive around first.
Exactly.
Then when people drove around, they wanted to recommend restaurants to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it started.
Yeah. They want them to drive around, so tires get worn and more Michelins get bought. So basically, 1 star means a very good restaurant in the category. 2 stars means excellent cooking worth a detour. And 3 Michelin stars means exceptional cuisine worth a special journey. So they basically wanted people to get in their car and drive around. That's the origin of this. So you were telling us about cooking meat.
So these 2 guys, they worked on the development of Sous Vide, and that caught on somewhere in the late 2000, that decade. So it's after 2000 that it really seemed to have caught on.
Is it before or after Heston Blumenthal?
Yeah, so Heston Blumenthal was one of the famous guys who used Sous Vide, and most of these guys, they don't talk about their cooking techniques, and Heston Blumenthal did. And companies came out with the equipment. Earlier, it was quite expensive. It was a few $100s, which is expensive even for Americans. So it remained a very niche thing. But now you can I bought a Sous Vide immersion heater for $99.
Right.
So it's not very.
What does the vacuum do?
So you put it in a plastic bag, and you want the plastic film to cling to the meat.
Okay.
So if there is air in it, air doesn't allow is not a good conductor of heat.
Okay.
So it'll take forever for the meat to reach that temperature, and it might not even reach that temperature.
Right.
You want the entire piece of meat to achieve the same temperature as the water bath.
Oh, okay. So in this particular cooking, even the inside of the meat is the same temperature as the outside. Is that right?
That's why it's completely
cooked through. Okay.
So it's you can also, for example, when you cook say chicken curries, right? So most Indians, the basic idea of a curry is you have spices basically in some carrier, maybe coconut milk, maybe onions and tomatoes, whatever is that's region specific. In Kerala and the coast where you and I come from, it's mostly ground coconut milk which does the carrying, and you add a lot of spices into it.
Right.
Different spices give you different flavors. It'll be chili, it'll be pepper, it'll be cardamom, cloves, whatever. And then you put the meat into it and you boil it.
Right.
And the meat sort of cooks because you're boiling it in, it acquires the temperature. It also releases a lot of its juices, which flavor the curry itself, the gravy itself. And that's how we eat. But here is my experience. In the special case of chicken, chicken is for some reason very sensitive to temperature. So if you overcook chicken, it tends to become a little rubbery.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So what I do is I sous vide the chicken and add it separately. It's very succulent, very nice, very delicious. And,
okay.
So you make the gravy and you add this, and it's a great hack. So
nice. Yeah.
So all these things, became popular as as equipment started becoming easily available and available at a fairly decent price.
Yeah. Basically, penetration of Amazon on cooking techniques.
Yes. Yes. One is this, and the other is air frying. So sous vide and air frying in the normal course, they wouldn't have taken off because it's expensive equipment and it is very niche use cases, right? So, I mean, you eat fried food once in a blue moon, you can very easily fry it. Why would you want to buy an air fryer? Right. Same with sous vide.
Yeah.
There are other ways of cooking it, and it's not that you cook. Most of us, we don't consume that quantity of meat.
Yeah.
But when you see it on Amazon, and it's just one swipe away, and you don't have to go into.
They have a nice strike-through price from $40 to $99. Please take all my money.
So that's and there are some there are some dangers in this. So I'll just run through a few of them. Well, first danger
do not try this at home before do not try this at home before hearing the caveats. Yeah,
it's generally safe. There's no problem with sous vide. The problem is fish is the recommended. So fish is if you cook fish, it's very easy to overcook fish. And the recommended temperatures for cooking fish are below 50 degrees.
Okay.
And there are several parasites that don't die.
Oh, okay.
Most parasites, they die after 52.
Okay.
So 52 and above is the temperature used for beef or pork or lamb or chicken. All of these are above 52. Most of them are in the early 60s. So if you cook through for the recommended period of time, so if you for a few hours and everything is at that temperature, all the parasites in it are dead. But fish, the recommended temperatures are lower than 50, and if you don't cook it for long enough, the parasites could be living. So that's one danger they say. I've never cooked fish on sous vide, so I don't know. And the second danger is there are these botulism spore.
Yeah.
So botulism is a very dangerous disease. It will paralyze you, that bacteria. Yeah. So all the organism is dead at the temperatures, but the spores survive. So if you make sous vide and keep it for a long time, it could come back to life because it has the medium. So these are two things that you have to. One is don't store it for too long. Just consume it within a couple of days.
Yeah.
And second is make sure that you heat it more than 52 for at least an hour.
But for chicken, it's safe. There's no salmonella and stuff like that.
It's amazingly like chicken breast, which usually tends to become very fibrous. It just turns out delicious. So that was.
So we started with sex and end with delicious breasts. So I think.
That covers the whole thing. So stay safe, stay delicious, and stay simplified.
Stay simplified. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I wanted to kind of just give a quick reminder to everybody. As I mentioned up top, we are doing our annual listener survey right now. If you could please please go and take a couple of minutes out of your day and fill it out. We would really, really appreciate it. It's ivmpodcast.com/survey. If you're comfortable giving us your email address, we'll enter you into a random drawing, and we're going to be sending out swag to a bunch of randomly selected listeners. So do definitely get on board that train. Let me tell you a little bit about what we did on the network this week. We launched a new show called Zindagi Diaries with Ragini Kumar. Many of you might have seen Ragini on television during the IPL. She's a presenter, but she's showing a different side of herself over here with a poetry podcast. Give it a shot, give it a listen. Let me know what you all think. Vishal Gondal is back this week after a while. He's been on an extended break, but he has Rahul Narvekar for the first episode. Really interesting conversation. Do check it out. Raji Samant joins Gauri Devidayal on This Round Is On Me. The two talk about the wine business and what's going on there. We had a number of conversations about the Farmers Bill and the surrounding agitation this week on the network as well. Maruk Inayat had a great episode on the note. Puliabazi did a deep dive into the issues around this. And on Siders, we have our typical, fun conversation about this stuff with a little bit of a seriousness, a little bit of fun. Do check that out on Cock and Bull on Thursday last week. Akash Mehta joined us for that episode. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
What are some of the radical changes that are now shaping our workspace? With physical distancing and heightened safety protocols being the norm, will technology finally make its large-scale entry to the workspace? Will design as we know it change for the long term? Is it possible for the Indian commercial real estate space to adopt a 360-degree approach to sustainability? Join our hosts at the Future of Space podcast by RMZ as we deliberate with industry leaders, analysts, and bright young minds on the way forward for the workspace given the new COVID normal. Tune in to the IVM Podcasts app or wherever you stream your favorite podcasts